Welcome back to our channel. We're going to be continuing on with the series here where we are redoing this boat, getting it ready for the springtime. It's getting pretty gross out there, so I'm happy to be inside filming in a nice warm garage. It's just about to snow out here in Canada right now, but it's not quite cold enough, so we're just getting some rain. So just as a recap, in case this is your first time tuning in, or just even if you watched the last video and just wanted a little update. So we have this boat that we are restoring just to get it floating on the water again, have some fun with it. And once we are done with the repairs, we're gonna start doing some customization to it. So we got a lot of big plans for that. In the future, if we could even take it down to Vegas for Viva Las Vegas, that would be a big goal of ours. So we're gonna try to have some fun with this thing, like I said, and get back to working on it. So this video left off with us building these frames. This one we had to create from scratch because it was actually incorrect when I went to install it. So yeah, now the next step is going to be fastening these down as well as these other ones here, so I can keep moving backwards and assessing any more of this crazy damage that we're seeing here. So now one of the first things I'm going to be doing in fastening these down is actually changing these holes. Now, if you remember last video, I mentioned that the wood that I'm using is slightly thicker than the wood that's on here for the current frames. So I had to actually file out a little bit of a groove to get these thicker pieces of wood to fit in here. And the reason I did that is because I just want to add some extra reinforcement to this boat. But that being said, now that I've done that, the hole to actually lock down this frame piece is not correct, as well as the hole in the middle, this big lag bolt or bolt hole that goes through. You can see it's kind of a little bit on this one, a little bit on this one. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and clean these up, and I'm gonna show you guys how we cover up the old holes. So over in this part of the woodworking shop, we have a selection of different skewers and rods, different sizes. So what I'll be doing is gluing these into place, cutting them, and then sanding it. And that'll provide actually a really high quality repair. We can screw back into that piece of wood in any particular way we want, and we're not gonna have any sort of issues with it. So first thing I'm gonna do is mark these pieces of wood so I don't get them mixed up with each other. I'm gonna take them off of here, and then we can start filling in the holes. So I got them removed. I got these cleaned up as well, sanded all of them down, and took a look at what we're gonna have to do to fill these holes in. Now, like I said earlier, there is patterns on these and you wanna make sure you're copying them. So for each one of these frames, there's gonna be a hole right here that goes down to, yeah, so this one has a stud and this one doesn't. So the fastener will be coming from this side on this one, and this one will be a bolt that actually goes up from the bottom here and runs all the ways up. Now, why the difference? The answer for that is that this is the main supporting frame rail. So for this one, there's going to be a bolt running through here. There's also going to be a big bolt running through the middle. As for this one, the supporting frame rail, it's going to have a fastener coming through here, like a screw, and same with this. There's not going to be a bolt here, and this isn't going to be a bolt either. So here I have a few different selections that I could use to put into the hole there. As to where we're picking these up, you can go to any arts and crafts store and they should have a selection of these. If not, Home Hardware, Home Depot, whatever's local to you. But I find arts and crafts stores typically have a really good selection of different sizes for these. And now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna test them out, and preferably I'd like them to be a little bit bigger than what's going on in there so I can kind of hollow the hole out a little bit. Keep in mind, I don't want to be gluing to rot, so if I can clean this up a little bit. So now I got those holes drilled, and they're all down to the 3/8 size that this rod is. So I can get those right through here and get that sealed up and cleaned up. And again, the whole point of this is that I'm trying to offset these holes just a little bit, move them over a little. So if I can fill them and then re-drill these, that's gonna be really beneficial in making sure that the bolt is lined up with that frame piece. I don't want it in between two of them because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So now what I'm gonna do is cut these roughly to where I need them, and then I'll get the glue set up. Now we have our epoxies here. This is what we use is West System. So we have our different hardeners and then our resin as well. And then back here we have our microfibers. So we have two different types. We have kind of a strengthening epoxy if we're doing something like what we're doing now, which would be something that has to have a bit of strength to it. And then we have the sandable one. So if we were putting epoxy on the side of something and we just needed to get it flush, we weren't super concerned with integrity, then we would go with the sandable. So what we're gonna go ahead with is we're gonna use the fast hardener and the strength fibers because I want this to cure relatively quickly, as well as add a bit of strength to it. Now we actually have these marked out, so I know exactly one pump of this and one pump of this is precisely the exact amount that I need. There we go. So what you want to do is mix the epoxy once you get the hardener and the epoxy together. Really stir that up to the best of your ability. And then you're going to take the fibers that we had before. Careful not to breathe these in, they are microfibers. And we're just going to carefully add a little bit at a time and stir it all up. You'll be surprised how quickly these microfibers can really set in this resin. It'll make it a lot thicker than it used to be, which is nice if you're trying to make it so the epoxy isn't dripping everywhere. You can really thicken this epoxy up by just continually adding these strengthening fibers to it. Now this is kind of the consistency that I'm going to want here. It's a little bit difficult to flow, which is perfect. So it'll stick into the areas that we're putting it into and it's not gonna run out, but it's also not so thick that it won't run. I do want it to run a little bit so that the entire distance of that hole gets filled up with epoxy. So now we're gonna get the epoxy onto these little dowel pins here. Make sure we get a fair amount on there. Now in the case of the dowel pins that aren't going all the ways through, it's alright if you just give it a little tap. Nothing crazy, you just want to make sure it's set all the way to the bottom. You'll notice too when I did that, it was pooling up at the top, so I'll take it out, push some of the epoxy in, and try to reapply it. I really want to make sure that I'm getting as much epoxy down into the hole instead of just allowing it to pool up on the top surface here. Now, if you are going to be putting epoxy in a hole that is open on the bottom, it doesn't hurt to just put a little bit of tape down there. Just stops all of the epoxy from running out. So while we're waiting for that to dry, we're gonna go back over to the wood shop. You'll remember I had that piece that I had to cut out for the support here for this metal bar. Now this is the steering bar. You can see it runs along here, connects down to the steering box, and that's just a sort of support to stop it from smashing into things when you're steering around. So I got this piece cut out, but I'm actually not going to install it quite yet because I don't know if you have already noticed the problem, but it won't exactly go on the way the other one would. So I'm just going to leave this off and hang on to this for when we reinstall it. As exciting as it is to watch epoxy dry, I figured we'd move on to the engine for a little bit and do a little bit of a tear down, get it cleaned up, get it prepped. So what I'm going to do is get this engine onto the stand over here. And to do that, I'm going to disconnect the transmission from the engine and connect it via these bolt holes to this engine stand. And then we can start cleaning it up and getting everything looking really nice. Like I had mentioned numerous times, we're going to be hot rodding this. Now, how I like to hot rod things is I like to stay as true to the original as possible, but kind of make it a little bit more elevated, a little bit more fun. So what I've noticed here is the original color is actually that green color right there. Now it is covered with this gray paint. Maybe somebody took a little nod from the name, Gray Marine, painted it. But I do kind of like the idea of having it green. So what I'm thinking is we might be able to find a paint code that matches the green of the dash on the boat. Here's that green that I'm referring to. So it's a really nice color. Like I said before, we're going to be keeping the dash and the gauges in this one, so how gorgeous they are. So I think if I match the green, the white, and this brownish color for the engine and make it look just like the dashboard, we'll have a really nice thing going. So what I'm hoping to do to match these colors is we have the brass on here and the copper that's similar to a wood color, so that'll kind of match up nicely. We'll get that green on the majority of the engine block, and we'll see what we can do with all the little accessories. I might just go and polish them. Like if you look at this, this is also copper or brass or something. So I really like these colors. I want them to stand out. And then I'll get my my pops here, the in-house pinstriper, to kind of attack this thing with a brush, put some life into it, make it stand out, and yeah, make this thing pop a little bit. But I mean, simple things like this, like you got a nameplate on here and it's buried under all this paint, you know, and it'd just be nice to be able to have a nice shiny nameplate on there, not only so you can read it, but it's also just nice for visual. So all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with removing that transmission. Now, most of these older engines actually share the oil in the engine with the oil in the transmission. So I'm gonna start by draining out the oil from the engine area. Then once that's done, I can begin disconnecting. So let's play a little game of what's wrong here. So this is why I encourage people to tear down the engine, even just to do a replacement of gaskets, for this exact reason. Look at this. The head of this rivet has sheared completely off. I don't even know how that's possible, but I do know it's been in there for quite a while, because if you look at the other ones, they have rust or whatever on them. And this one's been polished from rattling around in here like this. But you can see, look at the movement. So there definitely could have been some issues with horsepower and eventually complete decoupling here. If these heads snap off, there's a good chance that this whole thing could just implode. But that's funny how long this has been in there. It's actually been polished. I'm gonna clean this up and get ready to put it on the engine stand, but I wanna see if maybe I can take this off of here in a safe, meaningful way. Possibly undoing this bolt, looks like it'll come out, and see if we can get either a replacement or if we can get this repaired. So we're thinking this engine weighs probably 800, 700 pounds, not really sure, but it's exceptionally heavy. So we are gonna make some reinforcements for the mounts here. I'm over in the metal shop area, so cue ball pinstriping is gonna be taking care of building that. Yes, it has started to snow out there. It's gross, eh? So we got it up on the table here right now, and before we get the mounts built to put it onto the engine stand, we're actually going to remove this crank here.
This is really annoying. You have to keep backing the bolt out while you're pulling it. Yeah, because this is crazy. It's inside out. to a regular harmonic dampener, because you're pushing against the crank bolt, what is having the centering point in it, instead of pushing against the crank snout with a centering point, and you have to keep backing the bolt as you get it to come.
So we had this bolt in there previously, and we were able to pull this out only up until it started to hit right on this locking washer. So to get a little bit extra play there,
We just have a aluminum dud in there that won't mar the threads in the crankshaft snout. So we can keep extending this. It's very strange because this pulls past this bolt, and at first you use this bolt to get it moving, but you don't want to just have a couple of threads engaged because it'll just dork over and blow the threads out of everything. So once you get to the end, obviously you run out of travel. This has to come out, and then you have to replace it with something non-marring like brass or aluminum. So I'm just gonna take it to the end of its travel here. It's really smooth. I welded some extensions on. Oh, really smooth. There we go. All right, no damage done. See that? That right there. That right there is why Dad saves things for 15 years. I found this on the ground at our old house, outside the house, and I was like, whoa, look at that, and I saved it.
awesome. And then yeah, we'll take a look at the rivets here too. Yeah, so we'll get these repaired and replaced.
I'll show you how we're gonna fix it. Come over here. This is my old 4X gun it's off a aircraft carrier. I used this for 24 years in aviation. It's a Clico 4X. They're extremely rare, but it's got enough power to drive steel rivets like that. So we'll make a rivet, get it in here with a snap, and smoke that thing, and it'll look just like that.
We are capable of repairing this ourselves because he's had experience with rivets. He worked in aviation for a very long time.
24 years.
24 years. So we're not too concerned about replacing these and fixing them up to spec with the proper hardness, but I don't recommend you doing this yourself. Simply due to the fact that if these rivets were to snap, you're going to be dead in the water because it will be spinning on this shaft point. So now that's off of there, we're going to get the mounts built up. He's going to build the mounts, and we're going to get that hooked up onto the engine stand. So we picked up the metal to put the engine onto the stand here, and that cost us a rounding $230. So now we're going to hack that up and start building up the engine mount with it.
I'm just modifying it, make it safe to bear the weight of that, like, I guess it'd probably be 700-pound engine or something like that. And then, so this got chopped up initially to do a car, so I'm just going over some of the welds and putting in gusseting. The strongest shape is a triangle, so anywhere you can put triangles, you'll wind up with you'll wind up with a structure that won't move around on you. Yeah. So I just left these outriggers on here in order to make it a lot less liable to tip over, and then the engine's going to get mounted on the output side over here. We're going to make H-frame for the front mounts to keep it stable on the floor, because there's no way that you're going to want to put an engine that massive and long and top heavy on just this. It's like a triple. Look at it.
I like my microphone.
It's awesome. So cute.
So thanks to you guys and your support, we actually started investing a little bit into mics, and I don't know if you can tell, the camera's been upgraded too. Just trying to give you guys a better experience all around with the YouTube. But yeah, we'll let little cue ball here get back at it. And So here he has the first iteration all mocked up. So we get this nice and flush against here. He's got some beautiful MIG welds put on there. Who said you can't put beads with a MIG welder, eh?
Someone actually said that.
Now he's just making sure that it's sitting square on there, getting the holes marked out to drill.
So he's currently just working on building the mounting bracketry. Right now we have this going on, connected to the engine mounts with some bolts. Then we have a locator pin that we fastened on permanently. You can move it up and down, but we really don't want this thing spinning on here. What we're gonna do next is he's going to build mounts coming off of these engine mounts going down to there, so it's nice and sturdy on this crane. Now this may seem overkill, but keep in mind we have a number of these engines here at the shop. So for us, building a custom stand for this particular engine is actually nice, as we have a number of them. And on top of that, it gives us the ability to really dive deep into this engine and get it really nice and clean without worrying about this crane tipping over or any sort of problems there. I can really just sit down, take my time, make this look really nice. So we're gonna go ahead and get that front part put on. So there we go. We got that all put up there on the stand. It's plenty sturdy enough. I don't know if you guys can tell, but that'll be really nice for us to do the work on and get this all cleaned up. So yeah, we should be good to go. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them below. We try to respond to everyone who leaves a comment. And yeah, thank you guys again for all the support. We're trying to put a little bit more effort into these with upgrading the camera and the mic and all that. So we hope that this channel can grow and we can build the community a bit more. But once again, thank you guys so much, and yeah, have a good rest of your day.